Welcome. You're listening to the IT OT Insider Podcast. I'm your host, Willem, and in this special series on industrial DataOps, I'm joined by my co-author, David. And today we brought you Dominik Obermaier from HiveMQ.
Thank you so much for having me.
This is actually the final episode of our DataOps series, and we go out with a bang. I think HiveMQ is probably one of the, or maybe the best known name when we're talking about MQTT. So I'm obviously really happy to have Dominik here with us. 13 years ago, we co-founded HiveMQ, and today he is their CEO. So Dominik, also from my side, thank you for joining me, and Willem. And let's start with maybe your personal backstory.
Absolutely. Thank you. So my name is Dominik Obermaier. I am the CEO and also one of the founders of HiveMQ. It's really interesting that these days I spend a lot of time with OT people, but also on pretty much on the IT OT rift that many of our customers are observing. Because like when going back to my start of the career, before I studied computer science and then founded the company, I was working at a MES vendor for the German automotive industry. So I started pretty much like the very first 2 weeks of my job was on the shop floor of a very large German car manufacturer. So learn a lot what's happening if you see downtime. And this I think was an experience that I still paid dividends all across my career. And but yeah, going forward, then I started the company HiveMQ in 2012, so quite a while ago. I bootstrapped the company together with some very great customers, especially in Germany. We started to work with customers like BMW very early on, and since 2014, when the MQTT specification was pretty much developed, and I was one of the people who specified MQTT in 2014, since then we're all in on the MQTT technology, which is really interesting because now moving forward to, I would say, 2020, this is really where the concept of the unified namespace started to get a lot of traction, especially on the OT side, and especially in manufacturing, but also in energy, to be frank, not only manufacturing, also in the energy sector. And since then, also here at HiveMQ, we spend a lot of time connecting devices and assets on the shop floor and really from edge to the cloud. So what we do here at HiveMQ is we have a flagship product that's also called HiveMQ, and that is used by the best and also largest companies in the world to connect all of their physical assets from edge to cloud, and we provide this full platform based on the open standard of MQTT to connect pretty much all of the sites a company has, all of their assets, provide real-time visibility, and with a new product, what we call HiveMQ Pulse, that was released in February this year, we now also offer like a full unified namespace solution for small companies, but also for the for the world's largest companies. Example would be Eli Lilly in the pharma space, who is the largest pharma company by market capitalization. But if you look at our customer wall, you will see that in logistics, in energy, in manufacturing, and in automotive, that all of the top 10 leading brands in all of their sectors are our customers.
That's amazing, and that triggers already a couple of follow-up questions. But actually, I wanna start with so you are now 12, 13 years in the journey from bootstrapping to becoming a world leader in this space. How is the mission from HiveMQ today different than it was 12 years ago, or is it still the same?
Yeah, it's a great question. Our vision didn't really change. Here at HiveMQ, we believe that every company is an IoT company. And what we mean with this is, when we look back, let's say to the 80s, computers were a big deal. But and then we had companies like Microsoft who had the vision that a computer should be on a desk of every person, which back then was like was a dream. And I mean, look at us now today as society. We don't even have a computer on the desk. We have a computer in our pockets 24/7 these days. So the world changed quite a bit. And what's also happening is business change. So especially a bit before the 80s, actually, but in the 80s and the 90s in particular, computers were used everywhere. So every company got a computer company. If they thought of themselves as a computer company or not, computers were the backbone of what they did. And in the 90s, and obviously in the 2000s, the same happened with the internet. So every company today is an internet company. I recently was with my wife on a restaurant here locally in Landshut, it's near Munich. And I mean, we just booked it online. And we paid with cashless. We paid with our debit card. And everything that was happening is this restaurant sees itself as a restaurant, but it's actually a computer company, but also an internet company. Even if they don't think of it like that. And what we believe here at HiveMQ is that every company will be an IoT company. This means we are blending the physical world and the digital world together. And the physical world very often in the company context are assets, and the digital world very often are applications. And this now also leads us exactly to what we see when it comes to IT and OT, because this is exactly the convergence that also is happening in the industry.
Maybe a question to get things started, because I'm sure that some listeners already know a lot about MQTT. For others, it's maybe a word they heard, but well, I think coming from the horse's mouth, Dominik, how would you describe MQTT?
Yeah, MQTT is a technology. So first of all, I mean, technologies like exist and they're neither good nor bad. But the interesting thing is now the question: why are so many people talking about MQTT, and why are most of the digitization projects you find today in factories based on the MQTT standard? And when we go back to history, the computing history showed us that all of the technologies that we use today are based on open protocols and open standards. So many people have heard of TCP/IP. This is pretty much the backbone of the internet. Then we have communication protocols like HTTP. This is used if you access, for example, with a browser, Wikipedia or Google or something like this. So it's really built for the Internet of Humans. But there's also other communication protocols. For example, the email protocol, there's SMTP to send emails and all of these kind of things. And I mean, usually people don't care about technologies, right? We just want to use something that works. But the reason why we are interoperable, the reason why we actually can enjoy like an internet and why we can enjoy technologies today is because people standardize on some technologies. So it's actually really important that you don't go into proprietary technologies but into open standards that everybody's using. And so in 1999, there was basically a communication protocol invented called MQTT for oil pipeline monitoring. And back then, nobody cared about open standards. Also, the internet was pretty young. I mean, HTTP was just a few years old. Like this were really like the children days of the internet also. And then this MQTT protocol was used for oil pipeline monitoring, and it has a few key advantages. First of all, it was super lightweight on the bandwidth. Bandwidth was expensive. If you talk to Dr. Andy Stanford Clark, who was one of the inventors of the protocol, he once said in an interview that every byte, which is the most minimal amount of data you can send over wire, costs $10,000 per year. So every byte they could save was worth $10,000. So they were coming into the project to think, what's the minimum amount of technology we can add to move the data around? And this also in a way that works for mobile networks, but also back then for satellite networks. And so they built this, it was great, it was awesome, and then it was shelved. IBM used it for some other projects. And around 2010-ish, the specification was opened up by IBM, and it was pretty much a promise, hey, if somebody's building on top of this technology, we will not sue you. Which is not good enough for being an open standard. It's good enough to not get sued, but it's not. And so it took a few years until 2014, actually, before a specification happened. And I was very lucky to meet the other inventor back then called Arl Nipper. Back then he worked at a company called Eurotech. Before he was at Arcam these days, he has a company called Cirruslink, which is also in the MQTT space. And I met him and he told me about the technology. I thought, this is the answer to my question, what's the technology for the Internet of Things? What will be the winning technology? Because the technologies for the Internet of Humans is clearly not good enough. And so I mean, at the end of the day, with my fellow co-founders, founded the company, built the first product, won the first customers, and started like this with the company. And now, again, fast forwarding to today, MQTT these days is gone full circle. It was really invented more for operations technology, almost like for SCADA systems. This was pretty much a SCADA use case. And all these characteristics, it's open. It's based on what's called a publish-subscribe pattern. This means you're decoupling the producers of data with the consumers of data. It's very lightweight. And another characteristic, it's super trivial to implement a consumer and a producer of data. So it's very easy to implement it on any applications, even on PLCs and so on. And compared to other standards like OPC UA, I mean, just to bring it into perspective, OPC UA, depending on how you count, and it's like 6,000 plus pages that you should implement when you're implementing the full specification and all of the stack. MQTT in the first version had 40 pages or 46 pages. So this also shows MQTT is simple. And this is also why a lot of adoption was being done. First of all, it's simple and it implements a decoupled pattern. And these days you find it into all of the factories globally for device to device communication, but also for let's say shop floor to cloud communication and back.
That's a super cool backstory. It's also, it also shows that you have to be at the right place at the right time, and something can happen. And then the standard, or at least the protocol, existed already for so long, but it's just that one thing.
And it was also interesting. I mean, the question is now a question I get often is like, why is there so much pressure on companies to digitize? This is a question I get often these days. Because like, I mean, if you look at manufacturing companies, I mean, for a very long time you could get around by not digitizing. And there is, of course, the spearhead of companies that are highly digitized. This is great and everybody talks about them.
Yeah.
But the vast majority of manufacturing companies are still, let's say, not yet in the digital age. So for many companies, a huge success to actually have tablets, like digital tablets instead of physical tablets. And so digitization is not evenly distributed across the industry. Let's put it like this. And one of the things that really changed is since the 2020s. Since 2018, we now have the understanding, okay, AI is more than a buzzword and it's more than machine learning. So, and I mean, if you look back, I recently did a keynote where I also talked about this. So if you look at the industrial revolution, you have the first industrial revolution, the second and the third. And then you have the steam engine, then you have electricity, then you have computers. You have all these kind of key milestones and everybody back then, it was clear. It's not like, oh, we have the steam engine, nobody believes in this. The majority of people saw, okay, this is a huge game changer. Not everybody understood how it will change the game, similar to electricity. I mean, electricity is not like people, oh, electricity, nobody will need this. People, they're actually really bullish on this. I think it's a great technology. They're just unsure how to use it. And with computers, the same. I mean, everybody today believes computers is great. There's not a lot of people who think, oh, let's not do computers for manufacturing. It's would be stupid, right? And the same thing for AI. We now have this technology. Everybody understands we need that. This will change the game, but everybody's figuring out how it will change the game. And in 20 years, we'll look back and say, it's so obvious. Of course you do it like this. Similar to, of course you use the steam engine. Of course you use electricity. Yeah. But we are now figuring it out with AI. In order to do AI, you need data. And you don't only need some data, you need actual data that's usable, that's contextualized, that's also governed in a proper way. This is especially important in regulated industries. And also you need data in real time. It doesn't help you if you have old data, because decision making needs to happen fast. And then you only have the foundation to actually think about AI. And this is also why a lot of the digitization pressure is, at least in our customer base, is something we observe.
I just wanted to point, I'd say one short remark you made here, because I think it's really, really true, is that in general, indeed, the manufacturing world still has lots of steps to take to become digital. And what you actually see is that obviously you have some lighthouse companies everywhere, and obviously every technology vendor and every consulting company, they promote their lighthouses, and it's good that you say that, because when I'm in discussion with, well, many discussions I also have on a daily and a weekly basis, sometimes people say like, yeah, I know, David, but compared to the rest, yes, we are indeed really slow. And I go like, yeah, no, compared to the rest, you're actually doing what the rest is doing.
Yeah, exactly.
I would say, to make it one step more concreter or more tangible, we have this thing which we call a capability map. It's a bit the common thread throughout this series, where we talk from connectivity and contextualization and data quality, broker analytics, sharing and visualization. What I think makes sense, Dominic, is to map what you are offering a bit to I would say to our capability map, for two reasons. In the sense that first of all, you're more than only a broker. I think that's interesting also for our audience to understand that. And then secondly, you already like briefly mentioned Pulse, which is a new, I would say a new announcement. And maybe you could also comment on what Pulse is then also adding to those capabilities.
Yeah. This is great. So thank you. And I think just for the listeners and to the viewers of this podcast, I mean, I really didn't talk a lot about what HiveMQ does. So what we're offering is really a full platform end to end based on open standards, and this is very important because HiveMQ customers don't require other HiveMQ software to work. You can also use open source. You can use other vendors. We play very nice. Of course, we believe that all of the components we have are the best in the market, of course, but every vendor will tell you this. So, but we believe customers should have the freedom of choice, especially when they build a backbone for the next 20 to 30 years. So the decisions, so it's very hard to predict the future and to make the right decisions. And so what I urge other customers is, make some decisions based on principles. As an example, I want to use open standards, not based on vendors. I mean, you don't know what vendors will exist in 30 years, like hopefully all of them. But the reality is that you need to make smart choices. Your business is relying on a digital backbone. So I urge you to do open standards, and MQTT is the obvious choice here. The good thing is there's also other vendors in HiveMQ. But of course, I will now talk about HiveMQ. So what we're offering is, the flagship product is what is called broker. This is really the server that moves the data around from the producers to the consumers. And we do this we do a few things really well, I would say. First of all, reliability. Most of our customers are super mission critical. So we talk about customers who run literally national energy grids. So this means if there would be a problem, then there's a huge problem for a lot of consumers in North America. We talk about almost all of the car manufacturers in Europe. We talk about the same also in Asia, for many in Asia. We talk about also in the US, many car manufacturers. We talk about some tier one car manufacturers who connect all of the factories with our software. We talk about a connected fleet of all of the biggest trucks brands in the world, almost all of them that are connected with software. So this is mission critical, really. Like the business relies on what we do. And so we have a huge responsibility here. And we have some case studies. An example, Mercedes-Benz is a customer with us for more than 10 years now. We have a public case study that people can also see online where they say, okay, they didn't have a single downtime and for more than 10 years, while still going through 3 iterations of our software. So I think reliability and also high availability is something that we got right. This is pretty much why people come to HiveMQ. But then also you have a lot of other functionality on top beyond moving the data. So first of all, scale. As an example, I mean, of course, factory scale. Factory scale is, compared to some of the use cases, we have pretty small, to be frank. So we have a customer in Germany. It's a connected car platform. They have 30 million devices, like actual devices online on the same installation. We talk about a topic namespace for the people who are familiar with MQTT. This would be a topic namespace of almost 400 million tags.
Oh, wow.
So and it's a single installation. So this is one of the larger ones we have, but just to bring this into perspective. So scale is something, every time people talk about scale, don't forget about, like, we don't talk about scale. Like we run the largest IoT installation in the world. We're moving gigabytes of data around every single second. And this for factories, but also for the platforms. So this is, I think this is what we got really right. And then also the integrations to the other systems. So this is the data broker. And then what we added a few years ago is an open source product. So it's free to use, it's free of charge. Also, there is a commercial supported version, but every user can just use it and download it and use it. Something called HiveMQ Edge, which is a software gateway that allows you to connect to all the proprietary protocols out there, including OPC Modbus, and BACnet, and what you have here. And this is also free and open source to use. So you can get all of the proprietary data from your PLCs into a standardized, let's say, data backbone, but also move the data back. So it goes bidirectional. Which is also really important because a key problem most of our customers have is data silos. And there's unfortunately some vendors out there who really enjoy the fact that data is in their silo. And especially some PLC vendors don't like it when the data gets into other ecosystems. And what we help our customers also pretty much connect all of their different PLCs together. And this is important if you have, for example, a factory in Germany, you might have whatever Siemens here, and then you have a factory in the US, you might have whatever Allen Bradley here or Rockwell, and then you still can get the data together in the standardized backbone by plugging in these different PLCs and still have the same data formats. So HiveMQ Edge helps also contextualize the data. And then lastly, what we now added, we also have other things on the data stream, Data Hub, for example, does data quality, heals the data on the fly, proper permission management. It's really the enterprise grade security and the enterprise grade data management that you would expect from a solution like HiveMQ that we offer. And now what we launched is a new product called HiveMQ Pulse, which is a distributed data intelligence platform. So imagine you can have all of your factories globally, all of your assets, all of your devices in a unified information model, and you can manage your unified namespace there. And you can you can govern and manage your unified namespace. So it's a true UNS product that allows you to manage the data and the metadata, allows you to distribute compute, allows you to generate insights directly where data is being produced and not need to wait until data hits a data lake or some historian. And we do this also completely open with open standards. So this is pretty much not only the messaging backbone, this is the actual digital backbone where also the largest companies in all of the sectors are now building like all of their data needs on top to get real-time insights into what's happening anywhere on the globe in all of their factories.
There is this one typical follow-up question when you talk about brokers is where does historical data live? If you don't mind, I think it's also a question many people in our audience have.
Yeah, and this is a great question. So people who are familiar with the unified namespace concept, which is really not a product. It's really more like what's an architecture pattern that emerged. In the 2000s was a bit forgotten, and then in 2020 20 years later was rediscovered. And so the problem with unified namespaces right now is that if you build it, you only get real-time data. But in order to ask some questions, like as an example, in my last shift, what was the maximum temperature value I observed here? This might be a question that you might ask. The current state of the system is not enough to answer these questions. Usually, what you've done in the past is you had some kind of historian, then you had hopefully some dashboards based on this historian, and then you hope you can actually have this data. Otherwise, you would go there query. You might not have access to it, and so on, depending on who you are. Not every OT engineer gets access to historians all the time. And if you don't have a historian but own a data lake, good luck as an OT engineer getting access to this. This doesn't happen in many companies. So with Pulse, what we have is, first of all, we integrate with the historic data sources. This means we integrate with data lakes, we integrate with historians. But also, we realize the fact that many companies either don't have this or have teams that need more convincing that they should be used as a data source. Most of the time, the problems customers have in the digitization are not technological problems, but organizational problems. And access to systems is a big organizational problem. So what Pulse also offers is a history. You can configure this like how you want it. It has some defaults that are really sane for most companies, but you can really go overboard and almost abuse it as a historian, which you shouldn't be doing. But we saw some people already trying to do that. Or you can also integrate with other data sources. And so you can have the history, and Pulse also preserves that history and also generates insights continuously also based on history. And moving average would be an example of some data, minimum, maximum. Again, these are the trivial example. But we allow, as an example would be of insights, would be you can ask the system questions like, okay, here's a batch I produced. It had 70 steps of all of the machines happening here. And today, my yield is lower than yesterday. What changed? So you can trail back, and then you can figure out, actually, there was a reconfiguration of some system here on step 45. And so you can pretty much trace back all of the issues that occurred. So you can get these real-time insights. And this is not AI, no nothing. This is really just the information model that gives you these kind of answers. And of course, you can use AI and ML on top, but you don't need this for the. So if you have a proper information model, you do not need AI and ML. And sometimes people forget that you don't need fancy technologies to solve problems that require them.
A sort of follow-up question on that one. So with your new product, you work on data contextualization. You already mentioned the importance of data management and governance. Now also, again, the importance of having a very good data model, because that will solve a lot of questions without having to find out some crazy solutions. How do you bring that message to the shop floor, where that's usually not their world? And how do you connect with the central IT organizations in those big companies?
Love this question because it actually is I think it's the crux for all digitization at the end of the day. I mean, what many companies are in the situation is OT has very different needs than IT, and IT is very often depends on the company, is very often a cost center. It sits up until the CEO, sometimes into very different departments, up until there's a C-suite, and so there's an organizational rift in here. And by the way, I know it's not a question, but just as a quick side note, the best pattern that I've seen with almost all of our customers is have this kind of bridge team. Very often they have the name of a digitization team. They very often have titles like IIoT architect or similar, but there must be somebody responsible to bridge that gap, because it won't happen. And this is an uphill battle for many, many companies, especially if it's just like it doesn't have budget and all of this. So you cannot fix let's say an organizational problem with technology. This is, I think, the very first thing that people need to understand. And once you're committed to solve this organizationally, then you can also come back to technology. So in our case, we come from the IT side, clearly. So we know how to sell into IT. We know how to do this. This is where we've grown up. And when it comes to OT, first of all, you sell very differently, and the needs are very different. And so, it's really interesting. We work with both very well, and it depends a bit where this is driven. Most companies, this is our observation, in most companies, the digitalization is not driven by OT. There might be some OT people involved, and there might be a lot of visionaries here. And usually these are the ones who have the issues and they want to get it fixed. But usually also the budgets are not here with OT. It's very rare that you have a lot of budget to spend, which makes total sense. Like just from a pure, like OT very often, at least with our customers, is very this is capex, while if you look at IT, it's very often OPEX. And this makes an actual difference. I mean, this sounds like for many technologists, like, yeah, why should I care about this? Yeah, companies do care. There's a big difference how you look at investments and who pays for what. So I think, I don't have a good answer for your question, but we very often get brought in by this bridge team. It's very, very rare that an OT engineer reaches out to us and drives a digitization project. It's not happening. It's very rare that an IT person drives a digitization project. There must be a clear mandate and there must be a clear ownership. And if this is happening, then we also can work with the company. If this is not happening, we don't sell to these companies. And frankly, they're not ready. I don't believe anybody sells successfully to these people. If yes, please reach out to me. I want to.
No, I think David and I will agree. Unless it's part of the desire of the company to do this, I think even if you're a very enthusiastic engineer in a plant, your focus is probably better spent on selling it internally and getting closer to IT, maybe trying to create that bridge team. I think
also,
we have
Willem,
a couple of patterns for that.
Yeah, and also, Willem, the fact that what Dominik said, fixing the organization is always more important than coming with new tech.
Yeah, and if I just may add one thing, a success pattern that I've observed with the companies who implemented the fastest, and I just give you an example. I mean, why does it even matter? Why does it matter to digitize? We don't do it for the sake of fancy dashboards. This is not the reason.
But they look pretty.
Yes. But so one of our customers, they have rolled out to the majority of their more than 200 factories globally, and they say before any kind of new, let's say, use case, they rolled out. As an example, a very basic predictive maintenance use case for some compressors, as an example. It took them 6 months before. And now with the digital backbone I've built with HiveMQ, they could reduce this to 4 to 6 weeks per use case, rolled out globally into every single factory. And so that the speed of market, the speed of iteration is incredible. And so what's happening is the competitive advantage this company has compared to the peer is off the charts. And of course, this looks like not very significant right now, but just imagine you're outperforming all of your peers in execution by an order of magnitude. 10 times.
I think even in the teams and on the shop floor. I mean, if you say, I would like a dashboard that shows me ABC, or I want to integrate something, and you come as central team even, and you say it's going to take you a year and it's a huge project.
Yeah.
People will think twice about asking things from you. Whereas if you come and you say, sure, let's sit together and in a month I'll show you something. By the way, you can roll it out to whatever plant you think is useful. That changes how people will work with data.
Yeah,
absolutely.
And I think what needs to happen, and this is again that one of the successes one of the ingredients for success is vocabulary. And you need to establish a common vocabulary. And what this means is not only vocabulary. What it means is you need to get them on the same page. What does it mean to have a unified namespace? What is the definition? Why are we doing this? And so it also very often starts with training programs. And so what we do here at HiveMQ is almost all of our customers, when we onboard them, we have a lot of material at HiveMQ when it comes to technology, when it comes to let's say the business side, integrations, also for system integrators. So we do a lot of content and education for the market. And we have our, what we call university that we also use in order for purpose-built onboarding programs for customers. So they can establish vocabulary, they can certify their people, and they can actually, this is good for the people working because they have something on their CV, it looks great, you get a certificate, but also on the other side, you can also make sure like who's actually attended this. Is there some departments who are really into it and who really did the work? And is there some departments who missed out and have not yet enjoyed some education on digitization? And this turns out to be really, really huge for most customers, because once you establish this, you establish a common language. And this also means you can solve problems together, especially when you are in very different parts of the organization.
And if it comes about, or if we talk about education, I think with the IT/OT Insider, we can only agree that there is need for much more information available on the internet. Really,
and a common language,
yeah, and a common
because
language, absolutely.
there's ideas going everywhere.
Yeah, absolutely. Because that's one of the things that where all vendors, you mentioned in the beginning as well, all vendors obviously say like, buy our solution because we're the best.
Yeah.
But to come back to a bit more to the UNS topic, so you've created quite some content. Like, if I'm company X, whatever I'm producing, and I want to start.
Yeah.
I would say let's step away from technology. Like, have you seen some tips and tricks where you go like, if you do this and this is a good way of starting to build your data model.
I mean, my recommendation is, I mean, first of all, you really need somebody in an organization who wants to drive things, like especially for companies who don't have it clearly on their agenda. And then very often there's really two ways. The one is there is a top-down decision, board level, CEO level, or C-suite level says, we're now digitizing and this is how we fund it. This is great. This is amazing because then it's going to happen. Not every company has that luxury or that vision on a leadership level yet. This will come, but not everyone enjoys this luxury. The second best thing is bottoms-up adoption. And the way how to do this is not demonstrate toys, but demonstrate value. And very often the people who drive bottoms-up innovation, they are technologists. They love technology. Very often they care about the business, but it's not like they don't get up every single day and say, yay, let me, whatever, create 5% more efficiencies. It's awesome. Very often people really try to build something. There's so much great people out there who are great builders, and they cannot really contribute as much as they want to the company in the setting they are in. And so very often what's happening is they take a product like HiveMQ Edge, which is open source, free to use. Everybody can download it. You don't need to talk to sales for doing this. So you download it and then you connect your PLCs. This is really funny. We have many of our, let's say, champions in our companies. They have actual PLCs at home, like because these people live and breathe their craft.
Yes.
And so this is amazing. And so they connected and then let me just add the data. And then let me put it, we also have what we call HiveMQ Cloud. It's free of charge. You can connect up to 100 devices for free. So you don't even need to host anything. This means you have a free stack. You just route the data from the PLCs into the cloud. And then from there, you just route the data anywhere. This could be an application. This could be another open source tool. This could be a dashboard. And so this is how people get started. And once they understand the technology, they usually have an idea. They tell colleagues, and from there you get this adoption. But at some point of time, you need to demonstrate, okay, how can I bring this in and what's the value? And then the key question is very often, what's the very first use case? And I recommend please not go too fancy. Why don't you just quote unquote get real-time insights on this one alarm that otherwise you would have a downtime or something would break, and then you get the real-time insights as a push notification, as a value on a dashboard, and so on. And once you actually got the funding, and you can demonstrate the actual value, this is then where I recommend talk to us, and then we can also help you actually structure a real project, drive the value. We can help you and also communicate to your managers, to your leadership team, how to actually get the adoption in. It takes time. To be frank, it's not something you do in weeks. It takes time, but we're also willing to help on this. We've done this multiple times, very often, every single day actually. And so we know how to navigate also these kind of things.
Okay. Now I'm getting signs that I need to ask my last question. So one final question I definitely want to ask you. David and I also get questions about, UNS left, UNS right. And given that HiveMQ is quite involved in this topic, what are some misconceptions you would like to clarify around UNS? Because sometimes I hear people and they think it's going to solve all my problems.
Yeah, it's and also especially if you look at the popular LinkedIn things, forums, and so on. I mean, a lot of a lot of people are just using words and just pretty much do marketing. Sometimes I think like, really, is this guy in the marketing department? This used to be a technician, and now pretty much there's spread misinformation. Sometimes
That's
it's,
LinkedIn nowadays.
Yeah.
It's just like a new Facebook.
yeah, sometimes it's a bit disappointing that people spread misinformation. So I think there's a few people who really clarify the concepts and do great content. One of them is Kutsai Mante-Teresa, who also now works at HiveMQ, but he didn't used to work at HiveMQ when he created a lot of his content, but he now joined HiveMQ a while ago. The other one is Walker Reynolds, who also has some very good content, and he's one of the key drivers of this. And they usually have very good content. So this would be, I think, a starting point for everybody who wants to look at this. I think the very next step after, I mean, now it comes to misconception to actually answer the question. The misconceptions are very often that, I mean, first of all, UNS is not a historian. You cannot, data lake is not a unified namespace. It cannot be. It's, I see some people claiming data lake is a unified namespace. I'm like, I mean, it's you need to bend the definition very, very far to even remotely does it make sense. And
It's almost by definition not a structured environment. So
it's very, very tough. And then there's other people. I mean, I saw this this message a while ago where people are, OPCUA is a unified namespace since whatever 2018 or 16 or so, which also clearly has some misconceptions. So I think it's very dangerous. And the reason is there's no standardization. And you cannot weaken the message of MQTT. It's clear what MQTT is, what's not. You cannot weaken the message in OPCUA why it's in standard. And when it comes to architecture patterns, like unified namespace, there is no standardization. And I think this is good, but this also means people need to think. People shouldn't believe everything they read on the internet on this one, as usual. And I mean, what we take pride in really is some curated content, also from the best experts in the industry, also at HiveMQ.com, where we educate people, and and all of this stuff works without using any HiveMQ software. This is really important. We're an open standards company. We believe we have the best products to solve these problems. We are also not for everybody. I also must admit this. I mean, HiveMQ is really for mission critical use cases. And it's a commercial software, but we still want everybody really to drive the adoption, if they're customers or not. And so HiveMQ.com is one of the resources that we take really pride of, that we believe we have the best content around this UNS concept.
And I can only agree with that. I've used your content and I watched your content already multiple times. So thank you for that, and keep on doing that. I think that's also the mission we try to I would say to subscribe to here at the ITOT Insider. And I think with that, Dominik, this is again a wrap of this episode. So again, of the final episode of our DataOps series, where we explored how to make industrial data work for us. Thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, thank you all for the opportunity. It was really fun.
And to our listeners for tuning in again. If you enjoyed the conversation, don't forget to subscribe at itotinsider.com, or go to hivemq.com for information about MQTT, UNS, and more. And until we meet again, bye-bye.